All right, am I on? Excellent. All right, we're gonna make this little COVID-safe handoff. Happy to be here with y'all. It's an honor to share this stage. And before we start, one thing I do just want to bring to your attention out there is that it's been 105 days since Breonna Taylor was killed, and the men that killed her are still free. It's sobering. And that's part of the reason why we do what we do. So I'm just going to bring you into a little bit of what we're trying to do with Portrait Coffee, and we're trying just to pour a new narrative. I don't know if I need to click it right now. Y'all can just embrace the awkwardness that comes with us trying to do this and act like you're here, but you're not really here. Here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to pour a new narrative in coffee. For all the type A's out there that already have your notes app up and you're trying to take notes, I'm just going to give you my 2 points up front. And the 2 points that I have is this. Insecurity is always a thief. It's always a thief. And geography is never an accident. That one's going to come later. So just a little bit about me. I didn't like coffee 9 years ago. So I got into it reluctantly. So I tend to live my life by a set of rules that I find out when people want to extend hospitality to me. If I just have these arbitrary rules of what I do or don't do, I don't come off as rude when I reject it. I come off as principled. So in my 20s, I came up with just a list of arbitrary rules, and they're things like this. They would say, John, why don't you smoke? And just the rule that I came up was, I don't enjoy things on fire that close to my face. Folks would say things like, John, do you want salad? And I said, well, I don't eat salad because it tastes like outside. That was a rule that I had. They'd say, John, why don't you like the outside? And my rule was, I like the outside, but I think the best use of outside is on its way to inside, right? And so when folks would say, hey, John, do you want a cup of coffee? The rule that I created for myself was, I don't think beverages should be warm, right? Warm liquid already has a name. It's either bath water or soup, and I don't find either particularly appetizing, right? Well, all of that changed for me when, as a 27-year-old pastor, I just found myself working these early mornings and late nights, and I got to a place where I had to have something to keep me up. All we had in the house were these little Folgers instant crystals that my mom and my dad left, so my wife made it for me, and I tasted it, and I said, it's not that bad. So then what I did was what I do with everything that I get involved in. I really started to just nerd out on it and just try to explore what it was like. And so in 2012, I got a chance to start traveling the country to speak. Twitter was just starting to pop off then. So whenever I would land in a place, I would tweet and ask folks, where are the best coffee shops? And all over the country, I would walk into these shops and I started to notice a coincidence. My introduction to coffee was filled with insecurity. Every time, just as a black man in the U.S., I found myself walking into the front door of an interest. Insecurity was there to greet me, telling me that I didn't belong. So I walked into a coffee shop, and this is what I saw, right? These are the dudes. You know him, the bearded white dude with a axe, the too tight pants on, rolled up. You see the little boots. I wore a flannel today to show my solidarity with the coffee community, but I'm married, right? So there's no way that my wife would let me leave the crib showing that much cleavage. But I would see these guys and I would feel like I don't belong. So I spent my time trying to research and search, just trying to look for somebody that looked like me, that was involved in this thing. And I had to dig and dig and dig. And then when I found out how coffee started, my mind was blown. I know there's some of y'all in here that may know this story, but if you don't, humor me. This is what my introduction to coffee should have been. Over 1,000 years ago, coffee was discovered in Africa. An Ethiopian goat herder named Kaldi was with his goats, and he saw that when his goats would eat these cherries, the goats would be turned, just lit. And he said, "What is this?" So we pulled it out, found out that I can take the bean, roast it, grind it, pour water on it, and create coffee. And he discovered it, right? Not a Christopher Columbus discovery where I find somebody's paper and put my name on it. This was an actual one. So I spent my time trying to find somebody that looked like me that was involved in coffee, and I was blown away when I found out, no, wait. It's not just people that look like me that are involved. The inventor of it was from the same continent that my parents were grown up in, and that completely changed my perspective. Insecurity had me ready to give up on an interest because I felt like I didn't belong. But then the more and more that I dug and found folks that looked like me started it, I felt like, I've got to carry this on, right? And the reason why I say that is because it's crazy, right? I was frustrated that I had to dig and I had to do all of this hard work to find somebody that looked like me. The inventor of coffee had no clue that 1,000 years later, it would be the second most consumed beverage globally, right? Water, coffee, Coca-Cola. But he had no clue that even though it reached this far, his face would be all but forgotten, even though the pigment of the drink mirrored his own. So that set us on a spot where we're like, other people have to know this story. Insecurity is a thief. It'll have you convincing, or it will convince you that forfeit is better than failure. And once we saw this portrait, things changed for us. Point one, insecurity is always a thief. Point two, geography is never an accident. Geography is never an accident. 11 years ago, I moved to Atlanta as a 25-year-old to start a church with a group of folks here in downtown. And so when I moved here in an attempt to learn the city of Atlanta, here's what I did. I parked my 99 Ford Explorer, and I decided to ride MARTA all across the city. And so what I found out was that it's interesting how much you notice about a journey when you don't really care about the destination. So I would start at the southmost point, the airport station, and I would ride it all the way up north. And here's what I found. As I would ride from south to north, I saw two things change. Here are the two things that changed. The inside of the train changed, and the outside of the train changed. The further that you go north and you move through West End, downtown, up through Buckhead and North Springs, what you'll find is that the inside of the train changes. Black and brown people exit, and white folks get on. But then what you'll see is it's not just the inside of the train that starts to change, the outside of the train changes. The further that you go up north, the more and more the economic conditions improve. And not just improve, but skyrocket. So here's what takes place. In Atlanta, as you ride MARTA, you literally see black and brown people making their exit before they can take advantage of or enjoy the economic opportunities that surrounded them. And that may just seem like a coincidence, but then the more that I started to learn about coffee, here's what I found out. If you take the steps in the coffee supply chain and overlay it with the MARTA stops, you find the exact same thing that takes place. If the southernmost point are the black and brown farmers that own the land, right? Coffee literally grows where black and brown people grow. So you take that and replace it with the people that own the land that meticulously spend 10 to 12 hours per day planting, sowing, harvesting, reaping. And if the topmost part of the chain is the $18 bag that you buy in the store, what you find out is that as that train moves north, black and brown people get off as the economic conditions improve. And what we came to the conclusion was that is not an accident. That is not a coincidence. It is an issue of injustice, not just globally, but in the city of Atlanta. And if you need more proof, right, here's why we do what we do. Geography is never an accident. Here's two more maps about the city that we live in. The map on the left is 1930s. It's a redlining map. It was a process that the people that lived here in Atlanta intentionally did to keep black and brown people disadvantaged and advantage people that look like them. So they would outline or they would line predominantly black communities in red, and what they would do is they wouldn't give loans to those communities to be able to buy homes. So they wouldn't loan money to, but what they would do is they would build highways right through them. So I live in the West End, I have for the past 6 years, and I live less than a mile from Clark, Morehouse, and Spelman, and it is not a straight shot for me. I-20 split a neighborhood in half. So you look at that, that was intentionally constructed in 1930, and the map that you see on the right is the last census data. And what you see is that the racial breakdown in Atlanta mirrors the intention that the folks had back then. The people that created that plan for redlining are dead and gone, but their plan has successfully worked. Geography is never, it has never been an accident. And so all that we're trying to do is to paint a new picture. I mean, the stories, we could go on and on and on about the way that things take place. You can think of a town like Portland, Oregon, which if any of you know coffee, that feels like the coffee mecca. And there's a reason why you'll find a bunch of the first picture, the bearded, axe-wielding, too-tight pant, cuffed jeans, boot wearing. There's a reason why that's the picture that you think of when you think of coffee. Geography is never an accident. Here's a little history lesson on Oregon. Oregon was in the North. In the fight for the Union and the Confederacy, Oregon said, we want to be on the side that doesn't have slaves. So in 1859, Oregon joined the Union in the fight against slavery, but written in their Constitution, which was not undone until 1922, was a clause that said, we don't think black folks should be slaves. However, it is illegal for black people to own property in Oregon. Geography is never an accident, and it has implications. So seeing all of this, one of the ways that we've thought about addressing insecurity is what we're trying to do is to say insecurity is always a thief, but insecurity can be and has to be evicted. And the way that you evict insecurity is not by prescribing behaviors, it's by changing pictures. Nobody's behavior will ever rise above the vision that they have. And so at Portrait, we're trying to pour a new narrative. We're trying to change the picture that comes to mind when people think of specialty coffee. A picture is worth 1,000 words, and thousands of words have been painted that have unfortunately painted a picture of history that's cropped out folks that look like me, and all that we're trying to do is to insert ourselves back in there so that the little black and brown boys and girls that are at Brown Middle School, half a mile from my house, that they can look and have a picture of what can be, that they don't have to look at an industry that was created by people that look like them and feel insecure that they don't have a place in it. Rather, we hope that they'll stand on our shoulders and successfully work back down that supply chain to ensure fair and equal treatment for all. That's the picture that we're trying to paint. Insecurity is conquered the same way that a mountain is conquered. You don't conquer a mountain by tearing it down. You can't do that. You conquer a mountain by climbing it and planting your flag on top of it so that people that are on the ground can look up, see a flag there, and say, somebody's done it before, it can be done. That's what we're trying to do, and we hope that you'll join us and continue to root us on in that journey.